Glenn, heard it snowed in Vancouver today. When we were talking to Marcus Sales earlier, he even showed us. I don't know where you live in the greater Vancouver area, or was it, they call it the lower mainland? Is that what the kids call
mainland.
it?
Yep, lower mainland. Yep.
Did it snow where you are? Because you are wearing a warmer jacket today than usual.
Yes, we're in North Vancouver, kind of up on the mountainside, so we are right in the snow belt. And if it's even close, we're getting it. The other parts that get it more than anything is out sort of in the Langley area and Abbotsford, stuff like that. But what did we have? I think we've got at least a foot. I've been out there twice with the snowblower, and so it's real. And here in Vancouver, no one can drive in the snow. If you go anywhere else, you go to Manitoba, you go to Saskatchewan, you go whatever. One snowfall in Vancouver, and then there's a hill, and there are cars all over the curbs and up on the sides, and they're just like, your summer tires do not work in the snow. They just do not work, especially in the hills. So there's mayhem everywhere, Barney.
And then you would have bike guy. There'd be lots of bike guys who are trying to ride their bike in the snow and all over the place. You got to watch out for the case. So if it's snowing where you are, I like this. I like asking really useless questions. If it's snowing where you are now, how far away would you have to drive to go golfing if there was no snow down lower?
For me, there is a course that's like 10 minutes from my house. We're not on it or anything. We're not, that's money. That's money stuff. We're not.
That's what bike guy is striving for.
Yes. That's what we're trying to get to. But there's one really close, but it would be in the snow belt too. It would be above that level. So I would have to go downtown, probably Burnaby, out in that area, and it would be about a 20-minute, half an hour drive. And just before the snowfall, I know a buddy of mine that was my guy who was a contractor, he's a great friend, and it was a beer league hockey teammate. He plays at UBC and their golf course, and he plays there. He played all the way up until this snowfall. So like all of a week and a half ago, he was out there playing 18. Yeah.
My buddy lives in Pitt Meadows, and he'll send me pictures like all the time that he's out there playing it, and just obviously super jealous. Here, funny story. Buddy that I met played Bethpage Black with from Farmingdale, Long Island. He messaged me the other day, and he's like, "Hey, a bunch of us are gonna go skiing. Should we go to Whistler or to like Banff?" And I said, "You can't go wrong with either." I said, "I've never been to Whistler." I said, "All I know is our dollar is like at 60 cents." So just come up here and do whatever you guys want. It's going to be like when you go to Mexico and you feel rich. That's what you guys are going to feel like. Do the Whistler thing, get the biggest, the most expensive condo, and just live it up because our dollar is absolute garbage.
Well, you know what? Banff for me is one of my favorite, areas in Canada. I love it. The fly fishing in the rivers there, fantastic. It's so beautiful in the mountains there. But if you're going on a ski trip and money is not an issue because it's expensive in Whistler, it absolutely is expensive. But you got to go to Whistler. You have to go to Whistler. I think it's ranked like 1 or 2, maybe in the top 3 for sure in the entire world for ski resorts. So there's just so much up there and so many different styles of runs, and you can do the helicopter thing and all that too. So yeah, Whistler is the way to go there.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of funding to go. I'm more of a North Battleford, Table Mountain guy, or what's the Echo Ridge, the one down there. Look at this. Where's this? Is this Banff?
That's Banff.
This is Lake Louise or Banff?
Yeah.
Harry's played the golf course over there. I've always wanted to play that golf course. I think I missed my window. Now it's...
I played that course, Barney, and on one of the par 3s, we had to wait for the black bear to leave the green.
Yeah. Well, we get that in Waskesiu up north here lots. The bears always out. Kind of does its own thing. leaves us alone. I'm like, what do you want from us? You got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Really weird yesterday for me as kind of an outsider looking in here, that they announced that the salary cap is going up. Don't get me wrong. Really good news. $400,000 jump. It struck me as a interesting time to come out with that news. Was it not, Glenn? Or did teams know, do you think, now that we're kind of doing the negotiation thing, or would this have just been dropped on them?
It would have been dropped on them. And I don't think the league, well, first of all, the league is still, in a transition situation, the league office, because the commissioner has said he's retiring and stepping away, and they haven't talked about a new one yet. So, Greg Dick, head of football operations, Darren Hackwood, who's the head of the officials, they're probably in charge in a lot of ways in these things. I wouldn't blame them right now, not because of that, though, but because even if there was a commissioner in place, the final audits and when they do their final accounting, that has been set for some time. So that just happened to be when the news came out that there was 18 million across the board in increased revenues. And because of the new CFL Players Association agreement, there is a set percentage that the players will receive an increase in salary cap. And they have the choice. So they can look at it as an increase in salaries that you have to negotiate, or maybe they could add it to playoff money or Grey Cup money. And that would be interesting if the players voted for that, because now we're talking even more competitive coming down the wires if you're playing for money, which you shouldn't be anyway. But, so I wouldn't blame the league office right now. It's terrible timing because so many of the free agents have already sort of agreed to their deals, and then they find out that each team has more money to spend. Maybe they could have worked a better agreement even and seen some more dollars. So that's the downside. But there's really no one to blame here for it. If they do it again at this time next year, now the league's just being jerks to the players. But if they adjust it so that this is all done and the auditing and the accounting is done well before free agency, they know exactly where they're sitting, what the salary cap is, what they can spend, then they'll have made the correction.
Speaking of free agency, still a few days till it officially opens, but to me it seems like we're at a point now where it's very anticlimactic. I don't see a lot of shine left on a lot of things left out there. Is there anything that I might be missing that's maybe below the radar in terms of, well, this could be an interesting storyline where this person goes, but other than that, it seems again like it's kind of it's all done.
Well, I think in any free agency, really, there's the top 7 or 8 guys. Those all-stars. For us, it's like the Kenny Lawler type guy who everyone's wondering. Geno Lewis. Everyone's wondering, where those top guys are going to end up. And once those cards fall, then you're still looking at some very good football players. I'm not sure if it's completely official, but Peter Godber is a huge loss for Saskatchewan. So is Adam O'Clair. I think both of those guys, when you lose starting Canadians, and in the case of Godber, a starting all-star Canadian O-lineman, that's a hit. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat that. That's a hit. But there's still some good players out there, and players that can help you win. Again, I've mentioned them a couple times, but a Robbie Smith, Stephen Dunbar in Hamilton is an American receiver who I think is just hitting his prime and could be very, very nice add to really any roster. He's still available. Celestin Haba, who is in his 3rd year as a rush end, again, American here, but if the price is right, very interesting back half of the season to me in Winnipeg last year, and a guy that knows what it takes, but knows that culture that they're trying to build in the locker room for a team that's been back to the Grey Cup 5 times in a row. And here's another name that I'd love to throw out there and hear what Rider fans think about it. AJ Ouellette's great player, and he's one of my favorite players because of his style. But Kadeem Carey is still there. He's still on the market. I mean, Kadeem Carey is a different style guy. And if they could figure out a way to rotate or even play him at the same time, boy, the price would have to be right. The price, because you don't want to overspend when you get AJ Ouellette there. But Kadeem Carey is another name that I look at and go, "Ooh, that would be interesting if this guy, he's a breakaway player." And if you're watching the podcast right now, you're seeing examples of Kadeem Carey and what he can do.
So that was kind of my next question, was like, his name is still the one out there. And so with everybody else being discussed or spoken for, does it kind of a foregone conclusion then that he's not going to stick around in Toronto? Or like, are they like, there hasn't been anything about him staying there.
Yeah, I think it's still with a guy like him, and even really a Stephen Dunbar. I think with those guys, they're probably still listening to more than one offer. They're allowing their own teams, like in the case of Kadeem, Toronto, to counteroffer. And until we get to that 11th date where the contracts have to be submitted and they have to make their decisions, we won't know what his price is. So I think that's still fluent. It's still sort of in motion as to what he can try and get and what teams are willing to pay. And, I mentioned AJ Ouellette because if Kadeem, let's say he just hypothetically, I don't know this for a fact, but let's say hypothetically the Riders are talking to him and they say, you would be a 50% player. As long as you're both healthy, AJ Ouellette's going to play and so will you, but it'll be kind of a 50-50 arrangement. Well, that might not be something that Kadeem Carey is comfortable with, So, he might say, well, there's other teams that say I'm going to be the feature guy and play 80% of the snaps. And that might factor into it, and it might not be about money. So some interesting guys, guys, I still say, like, this is what I mean about sort of once the top guys fall. I still say a guy like Tunde Adeleke, who is a Canadian free safety. Now, the Riders have Jackson Ford and Jaden Dahlke, and they have the Onyeka brothers. And there are Canadians that could be good free safeties. And I think Dahlke, when I watched him, I thought he had some penalty issues this year.
Fellas are back.
Gentlemen, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It must be snow all over the cables here in Vancouver.
I was just gonna say that the big snowstorm that came through. We were getting it to, and we're getting you back on here, Glenn. Besides the Riders, where would you see as maybe a top tier landing spot for Carey? Maybe a team that you just think that would be talking to him aggressively?
That's a good question, because Calgary he's been and gone, so that's probably out of the question. Winnipeg,
you can't go back? Isn't there a song that says you can't go back? You can go back.
You can. You can. If the number's right and everybody's happy, you can. But probably down the list, likely stay in the East, maybe even go across the highway to Hamilton would be an interesting one. I have to look back at all the teams, but I think when you're talking about a Kadeem Carey, this is a champion. This is a guy who not only is, going to get his ring at the beginning of the next season from this last year in Toronto, but was a huge part of the win. I heard you guys discussing earlier about the importance of tailbacks and how all of a sudden they're getting paid more in the States, and people are maybe, it's the eye-opening thing that you have the right guy back there. Your offense runs through him. One of the main reasons I've often said that the Bombers have been back to the Cup 5 times in a row is because of Brady Oliveira, is because of their run game. And their run game opens everything else up. And when you guys talked earlier, I think it was with Arash, when you talked about how the run game, if you're getting gutted by the run, your defense is demoralized. It is so true. I remember back when Mike Pringle was the star running back in the CFL, and we had to try and stop him. And many, 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 many nights we couldn't. We'd be in the huddle saying they're giving the ball to Pringle. Like, We don't have to call a defense. This is what they're doing. And we couldn't stop them. And that is completely demoralizing. So yeah, and that doesn't even bring up the pass protection element and how important it is to have a guy that's smart enough and understands the game enough that in those passing situations for the quarterback dropping back in the pocket, he can scan the open guy and make sure he picks up the blitzer, because that is crucial or you get your quarterback killed. So, big time important position for your offense to be successful.
Mario Alford yesterday came down. He re-ups with the Riders. A lot of people, return guy, all this. The one thing I noticed last year with him, right, is they were really trying to stay away from him. They're trying to punt it into the corner where he didn't have anything to take advantage of. But that one, did that come as a surprise for you, Glenn, or did you think he'd be back?
Well, when Janarian Grant signed back with the Argos, then now it's sort of negotiate with your team, get the best you can. Really no need to move on. I'm not surprised at all the Riders want him back. You mentioned one thing that's so important and almost never talked about. I mean, Alfred is a guy who we've seen many times, probably 2 or 3 times a year, where he'll break it all the way back for a touchdown. And sometimes that's a missed field goal, one of the most exciting plays in our game when you take it that far. But it is that field position difference. I mean, we had almost 63 or 64% of the games decided in the final 3 minutes this year. And if you think of that, you're talking about 1 possession games, because they're decided, they're still in the balance with 3 minutes to go. And that means they're 1 possession or less. So not just 7 or 8 points, but maybe 2 or 3, or in some cases 1. And if you have just scored to take the 2-point lead, Mario Alford taking it back to midfield is a game changer. I mean, that's probably only 20 more yards, the difference between an average return and a great return to the midfield stripe. But you can get your offense there, with 40 seconds left. They can run the entire offense. They don't have to take a shot and do all those deep balls and crazy throws. They can run their regular offense to go back and get the winning points. They're already in field goal range almost. So those are important yards. And I'm not surprised they got Mario back.
I want to pivot to the Super Bowl. Harry and I were talking about it coming up Sunday. Kind of a big deal. Harry brought up the point with, I don't know, you were listening to the Arash interview. Harry brought up the good point, right? It's like 2 weeks. You got that week of like, this just seems draining and there's nothing there. Totally marketing time and a chance to make money. What's your take on the 2-week window?
Well, I know why they do it. They do it because it gives their teams and the players a chance to get their families organized and all that after they know they're going to the Super Bowl. And then they can concentrate for 1 straight week in just preparing for the game. Plus, it gives them a chance to rest. So the Players Association would be all on board for it. I think it's too bad. Think of it this way in our country. If we got to a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final and they said, we're going to play that in 2 weeks. What we're going to do, we played all the playoffs one after another, and we played up to Game 6 one after another. But now it's a Game 7. 1 game decides it all, but we're going to wait 2 weeks to play it. I think you lose a lot of momentum. And Barney, I get what you were saying about the opening for more advertising dollars and, different nights and luncheons and things that you could sell. Yes, for sure, that would be important. But I think it really takes the wind and the momentum out. The other thing, and this is just a theory, I might as well put this on social media because I have absolutely no facts to back this up. But I think the short, like the 1 week in our league or in other sports, or even in the Stanley Cup Final, where it's a 3-day to get to Saturday night for Game 7 instead of maybe 2. Right? It gets to Game 7 and maybe a 3-day break or something. That that to me helps the underdog a little bit. A 1 week break in football when you're banged up after getting yourself to the big game, and you've got to get organized. It's a different beast because of all the travel and your family and everything else you got to deal with. I think it helps the underdog to just keep on that roll and say, no one believed we'd be here. We were the low seed in this whole playoff thing, and we've climbed all the way up. And Philadelphia, I guess, is in that category, really. Yeah, I don't know. It's, again, that just a feeling.
Okay. Okay, we got 25 seconds. Who do you got Sunday?
I'm going to go off the board, and I'm going to take the Eagles. I really, everybody I've talked to, and I've talked to some people at TSN who are all involved in this and stuff, and actually down there as well, and they're all taking Patrick Mahomes. They're all taking Kansas City. They're too good. They've got too much balance. They've got the best player in the world. I just think the Eagles defense is good enough to not stop, but maybe contain, keep it under 25, and the best sort of grinded out run game. Jalen Hurts has to play great. He has to have another good game. He played great in the championship round, but he has to have another big game. But I'm going to take the Eagles and the underdog. How many points do I get?
I like it. Nothing. Just straight up money line.
1.5.
You take them. Colson wrote it down in the book. I'm taking the Eagles too. That's more just because I want them to win. And then we'll recap this on Tuesday next week. Okay, go get that snowblower fired up. Enjoy the weekend, Glenn.
You got it, guys. Getting the mittens on. Here we go. Thanks.
That's right.
Press coverage with Glen Suitor.